Hey there, Raq Stars! I'm Alyssa Jacob, and welcome to Raqs Curious, the show where I answer your questions about belly dance. Today, we are going to be talking about some of the different styles of belly dance and how you can recognize them. Are you curious? Grab some tea, settle in, and let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Last time we met, I was getting ready to go on spring break, which was really great. I got to attend the very first Northwest Vila Fest in Seattle, and I got to finally study, after about 13 years or so, with one of my belly dance favorites and inspiration, Sadie. And that was an absolutely fantastic experience. I'm so excited. I hope they do it again next year. And then Emerald Sanctuary is happening again this year, so I'm very excited to be attending that again. Anyway, so this week we are going to be talking about different styles of belly dance and how you can recognize them. All right, so there are a few different styles that we're going to go over today. There are various styles of belly dance, and it is an art form that is ever evolving, which is something really important to keep in mind because costuming trends might come and go. Then you've also got the retro trends that happen. Right now we're seeing a really big resurgence in golden era belly dance over the last couple years. So that can also be trickier for some people to differentiate. So we will go over that. We will go over a list of belly dance styles, as well as cultural and social dances. So things that aren't belly dance, but that have been adapted for the stage and brought into belly dance shows sometimes, and they kind of have a place in belly dance, but they're not belly dance at their core. This is by no means an exhaustive list, as there are just so many different styles and types and innovations that happen all the time. So I want to preface all this. If you're just getting into belly dance, or maybe you've seen a little bit, but you're not really sure what you're looking at, when you go to search for videos, or if you go to see a performance, just be really careful of anything that is using the word fusion. I'm doing that in air quotes for if you can't see the video. It's fusion. To do fusion, you need to learn the rules of not just belly dance, but also other styles that you are fusing together with that core of belly dance. Because if you're doing belly dance fusion, belly dance has to be the biggest dance style that you draw from, and then you kind of find where things intersect and where they match up. Or at the totally opposite end of that, you could also highlight where they don't match up. So before you do any kind of fusion, or you get into anything that labels itself as fusion, you want to make sure that you are learning all the rules for whatever it is that you are fusing. And a lot of times, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, a lot of fusion styles get taught as your foundation of learning. So you start by learning a style and not necessarily the technique, which can be confusing for some people when you first start learning. So what I mean by a style versus a movement. So a movement is just a basic shape. It's a straight line, it's a wiggly line, it's a wave, it's a circle, it's a square, it's a whatever, a diamond. But if you take that movement, you can do it in different variations. And so you can change the look or the feeling of that shape but it's still a shape at its core. When you're learning any kind of stylization, what tends to happen is you learn one shape one way, and that's it. So we will get to that in just a minute, but let's first talk about Egyptian Raq Sharqi. So we're talking about belly dance movements popular with Egyptian dancers and audience. Cairo is the capital of belly dance, and this dates back for a long time. I would say modern performance belly dance, cabaret belly dance, anything that is in like a sparkly costume would date back to the early 1900s. That's kind of where it was really adapted for stage first, and there were a lot of different innovations that we still see in practice today, and it's kind of become a part of the Egyptian culture when it comes to belly dance performance. So you want to check out cultural dancers. So you want dancers from the culture, is what I mean by that. So one of the really big Egyptian dance superstars is Dina, right? You know Dina. Or Randa Kamal is also really big, and she is very active in teaching right now. I don't see as much with Dina, but that's not to say that she doesn't teach. She does travel. A lot of things with Egyptian dancers happen on the east coast of the U.S. Sometimes you get people coming to California, but if you're in my area, which is the Pacific Northwest, you gotta travel a little bit usually for those dancers from those cultures. Or you also want to look at people who study extensively with dancers from the culture. And for example, Shahrazad, who is also really accessible, she has lived and worked in Cairo for, oh my gosh, it must be like 8 to 10 years now. And she has this mission of making the Egyptian culture more accessible to Western dancers. She has been producing music, she has been hosting cultural dancers and language, and she does these big travel things you can look into. So we're talking specifically about Egyptian Raq Sharqi. In terms of costuming, what you'll see is a lot of bling. So these costumes, even going back for a few decades, it's going to be a lot of beads, a lot of rhinestones, a lot of sparkles, big chiffon skirts that are circular, or even the tighter skirts that are usually some kind of stretch, some kind of lycra, spandex, but they are going to be showy. So it's going to be very showy. Right now there's a trend happening where the skirts are shorter. They used to have like a mini skirt trend, but now it's kind of like an asymmetrical fringe trend that I'm seeing a lot right now, but that could change as well. And then there's also subdivisions like Sha'abi dancing or the Mahagranat music. So that, again, is always changing what the specific fashion trends are, but it's usually going to be very flashy, very, very sparkly. So that was the Egyptian Raq Sharqi style. The second most common, I think, style that you'll see if you go to some kind of establishment that's hosting a dancer. So in Cairo, you know, that's a huge hub for belly dance performances. And you'll see they're very lucky in that they have a lot of live musicians as well. So you can go to Cairo and you can see a whole plethora of different dancers and bands and venues that do performances. In the US, however, what you also get, so you can have a dancer who's very Egyptian in their style, more Raq Sharqi, or you can have someone who is very AMCAB, which is short for American Cabaret. So this is a style that is kind of a fusion. It's kind of a fusion style. It's something that happened in the 60s, 70s, most known for it in the 60s and 70s, where it's different belly dance styles from various Manat and Swana cultures that was developed and performed in these venues that were more pan-Arab. So it wasn't specifically Egyptian. It wasn't, specifically Turkish. It wasn't specifically, there's some Armenian musicians that would come over, but it was just a hub for anyone pan-Arab that would come into these dinner shows. They would have live musicians from various parts of those Arab cultures, or even Turkish. But it was nightclubs in the U.S. Between like the 50s and 80s. It's kind of when it started to wind down in the 80s, where you had this surge of new people and some dancers. And what happened was a lot of American dancers started studying with all these different kinds of people, and the music, because everyone's from a different area, it's going to sound a little different. So it kind of blended and melded in that way. So this was the more organic American melding pot for these different Manat and Swana arts. During this era of belly dance, costumes were usually handmade and incorporated lots of coins in the bra and belts, as well as big chiffon circle skirts. And those circle skirts could be plain, or they could be usually a striped pattern. But it was very, I think, different from what was going on in the Egyptian Raq Sharqi, which was it was beads and rhinestones still. If you look at Egyptian cinema from that time, not a whole lot of coins unless they were doing something really folkloric in that regard, I guess. So this was also specific in the U.S. where they did a lot of floor work. Usually there was a floor work portion in every show. That's not really the case now. I think floor work kind of fell out of favor and has started to creep its way back in. So again, we see these trends coming and going throughout time. Throughout time sounded so dramatic. All right, so we're still in the US right now. We're going to talk about American tribal style, which has now kind of adopted the name of American transnational style, as people have become more aware of some of the problematic things out of using the word tribal and fusion. So now we're going more for transnational styles. So it was created in the 80s and gained a lot of popularity in the 80s and 90s. The style of dance was unique as it is a cued group improvisation, so nothing is choreographed, nothing is planned. There is a cue that the leader will give, and everyone will see that cue and go into whatever that cue entails, whether it's we're going to do an undulation and then a lean, you see that a lot, or a turn. So that was one of the really unique things, and it's still very unique today. And it's a fusion of multiple cultural dances, and it also takes inspiration from sculptured poses. So that specific spot of detail, the sculptured poses, comes more from Masha Archer, who was a dancer in San Francisco. I think she does a lot of jewelry right now, but she created her own interpretation of this. So a classic ATS look, so that's short for American Tribal Style or American Transnational Style. The classic ATS look consists of a big tiered skirt, a choli top, which is more of an Indian influence, and a lot of times there'll be hair flowers in the hair. The hair is usually up, it's not down, which is also different from Egyptian rock Sharqi or American Cabaret, Cab. So you can still take classes today to learn the specific terms, the format from the movements. It is its own format. So ATS, the really beautiful thing about that is that you could dance with anyone from anywhere that's taken that same format. Someone could just turn on some music, you start your little circle, and then someone breaks away and is the leader. They give you a cue and everyone can do that cue and just dance together. So you can just, on the spur of a moment, jump in and dance with anyone who has studied that format. But that format has also inspired other formats. So from ATS and those innovations, the next step in the U.S. journey of fusions and things like that is something called tribal fusion, or now it's, again, they've changed that to transnational fusion, which is a style of fusion all its own, consisting of movements from belly dance, contemporary dance, and hip-hop. So this was more from the 90s to 2000s, like the really early 2000s. These dance styles were kind of just collecting from other Western dances, not just dances in the Manat or Swana region. So now we started putting more American culture and dance styles into this new genre and expression of dance. So this style of dance has been described as earthy and slinky and tends to be slower than other styles. I would recommend checking out dancers like Rachel Bryce and Zoe Jakes that both teach and have their own format and language for these different transnational styles. And there are many other transnational dancers that dance that kind of style or whatever their brand of that style is. Everyone kind of has a different thing. Something that I really enjoy watching is people who have taken jazz era American, like Charleston movements, and put them in there. I think that's a really interesting Art Deco interpretation of transnational fusion, but also it gets slinky. So it's just really cool to see what other people can come up with and what they're drawn to. All right, so the next one we're going to go over is Golden Era. So I mentioned this before. This is something that's kind of had a resurgence over the last couple of years. And it's still going. It's still going strong. So you can find people really easily who teach Golden Era styling. So by Golden Era, what we mean is belly dance movements and music from the 30s and 50s. Dancers that have inspired us to continue this genre of stylization include the legends like Tahia Carioca and Samia Gamal, who were both dancers in that time. You can find a lot of video of them performing on YouTube, or I'm sure other platforms have them. But those are the two biggest ones because they were the first really popular belly dancers to come out of Badia Masabni's school, which we can talk about her another time. She's really fascinating. Golden Era classes, series, and workshops are on the rise, so be sure to check them out. Retro Era. the musical revolution. This is one of my favorite belly dance styles to draw inspiration from. So these were belly dance movements and music from the 70s and 80s. So at this time there was like a widening of the music depth. That might be a hard way to describe it, but they became just very different from the classic standards. Not that they're bad. It's not a bad difference, not a good difference. They're just, it hits different. The songs hit different. There's a lot of beaded bras and belts, fringe, and one of the things that you'll see a lot in these videos when you go to look up dancers from this era are the body stockings. So they'll have the bra, they'll have the belt, they'll have the big skirt, but then they'll also have a body stocking to cover their stomach. And I think this has to do with changing of laws at that time. That's something that happens all the time, as I understand it. In Egypt, you have to make sure you're keeping up with whatever costuming standards the Egyptian government decides is going to be in effect. Look for stars. So when you go to look up videos for this, look for stars like Suher Zaki and Nagwa Fouad. The 70s were wild. You're going to find a lot of really crazy TV specials. A lot of dancers produced some of these with their own earnings. So they had full creative control. It wasn't for a movie. It's not just a cutaway scene where belly dance is featured in a movie. This was all about the dance. It was about creating that tableau. So it's wild. And of course you got the green screen that everyone loved in the 70s. So go enjoy. Go enjoy looking that up. All right, the next style we're going to talk about is Baladi style. So this is a specific style of dance that is hugely popular with Egyptians especially. The costuming is usually some kind of dress, some kind of galabea, and some kind of bright colored hip scarf. The original costuming that was really made famous in the 80s was just a plain white man's galabea. It didn't have any detailing on it, and just a really brightly colored hip scarf. And that costume was made famous by Fifi Abdo, who is just, I feel like at this point we can say that she's the undisputed champ of Baladi style. Because of those innovations and tableaus that she created in the 80s. Fifi made many contributions to the genre, especially to the Baladi progression, which she turned into a tableau for the stage. So a tableau is when you're setting a scene. It's not just you come out and dance. There is a flow to it. There is a storyline that you follow. And there's a really famous video of hers where she's performing at I want to say it's a hotel where she's got the full band. She comes out, and it was really interesting. I'm sure you could write an entire paper about this tableau that she creates. But it's like she's getting ready for the day, and then she's getting ready to leave the house, and then she starts dancing. And you can see her directing the drummer a little bit. So definitely go and watch videos of her in the 80s doing these dances. She is absolutely phenomenal, and she is still very active on things like Instagram. If you want to go and follow her, that would be fantastic. So we got to talk about right now what's popular. So we kind of worked our way from and down the timeline from like the early 1900s to present day. Right now, we're going to talk about the Ukrainian and Russian styles that some might mistake for Egyptian rock Sharqi if you don't know what you're looking at and how it's different. I feel like suffice it to say it's not subtle. The Egyptian rock Sharqi can be very subtle, but these Ukrainian and Russian styles are just not subtle at all. So they're popular with those dancers from those countries. It is a highly athletic and energized version of rock Sharqi. So yes, these dancers have probably come to Egypt and studied with Egyptian masters, and it seems like a lot of them have either learned the songs or learned the entire language, so they are knowledgeable, but their specific style, there's almost like no breath to it. It's bam, 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 bam. It's really exciting. It's all excitement. This style is more about taking every movement and gimmick to the extreme. So a lot of times, and I like this. It's not necessarily a bad stylization. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's, a lot of times it is very gimmicky. Like there's a gag. Interacting with the crowd is a big one. Whether it's a huge audience or you're one-on-one, there's a lot of interaction, which is fun for an audience member. I definitely recommend looking at them, at these kinds of dancers, if you don't know what to do when you start performing to interact with people. They're just really fun and silly. It's like belly dance on Red Bull. That's the best way I can think to describe it. So Turkish belly dance is more specialized. So it is available, but it's not as popular or as visible as a lot of the Egyptian styles or things that have come from Egyptian styles, or since you're in the US, you see a lot of the transnational styles as well. So Turkish belly dance styles are specific stylizations to Turkey. Yes, the country of Turkey. This includes music in 9/8 time signatures, which is very popular with the Turkish Rom population. So one of my favorite things of Turkish is that, of these Turkish stylizations, is the 9/8 time signature. I'm a sucker for 9/8. I tried doing Turkish on my own and then had an actual Turkish judge go, "Oh, it's so cute you tried." So it does take studying to know what you're doing, because there's different kinds of, I guess, characterizations or styles of the 9/8 that you have to learn, that I just do not have that kind of knowledge. Turkish belly dancers, or people who study specifically and specialize in Turkish stylization, are out there. You can find them. It's just, it's not what most people kind of look for when they go to find classes. So we talked about what is considered belly dance. Let's talk about what's not considered belly dance. But a lot of times people consider them belly dance because they come from the same regions. So one of the first ones I'm going to talk about is the Maghreb dance styles. So these are cultural dances from North Africa, Algeria, Libya, Mauritania, I hope I said that right, I always get that wrong, Morocco, and Tunisia. So there are Amazi dancers that you can study with, such as Lay the Night, who is based in France, and there's also Amel Tafsit, who I've talked about before on the podcast. They are fantastic resources for those who are interested in learning more about these cultural identities. I do want to preface that by saying that even though these Maghrebi cultures and styles are under the kind of umbrella of Maghrebi, they're still very different. So Amazi specifically is going to be more of the tribes in Algeria. A lot of people have previously known them as Berber, but that was a name that was given to them by the French, I believe. But Amazi is the actual name of the tribe. They have their own flag and language. It's really fascinating. Go look them up. There's a lot of specific Moroccan styles, sikat. Hope I remembered that right. But it's completely different from the Amazi styles. So make sure that you know which one you're looking into and don't just kind of umbrella everything as Maghrabi from these regions. So that's Northern Africa we're talking about. Now we're going to talk specifically a little further to the east, and we're going to go into Egypt again. And these are the Egyptian cultural dances. So they are not belly dance, but they have been adapted for belly dance performance and stage in a show, or maybe you're just doing a special cultural dance and it's kind of wedged in with other belly dance. It's still its own thing. So Egyptian cultural dances, this includes but is not limited to Saidi. So that's Raqs Asaya. That means stick dance. You see that a lot, again, in the dresses, and it's really cute. The shamadan, so that's the candelabra that you wear on your head. There's like a hat piece to it a lot of times. If you're real good at it, like Shining, who has been bringing a lot of Egyptian culture information to the U.S., she's been in Egypt for a while studying with Kyria. You'll get one that doesn't have a cap on it. I don't know how she manages it, but she does it. She's amazing. There's Nubian styles and also Ghawazi styles. So Ghawazi style is also really specific. There's only, as far as I know, Kyria Mazen, who is still teaching and practicing and sharing their knowledge, and then Shining is kind of helping us get that knowledge and pass it on. So shout out to Shining. So I would suggest that you check out the Mahmoud Reda troupe, as they were financially backed by the Egyptian government to create a folk dance show. So they actually traveled around Egypt to study and find these cultural dances and then adapt them to the stage. So that's really where I think it started, is with Mahmoud Reda's troupe and what they created that we all kind of just adapted as well. I'm sure it was hugely popular at the time. So those are cultural dances and not necessarily belly dance, but have been adapted over time or taken influences from it. Like Ghawazi, they've always done performances. That's a whole nother topic. We don't have time for that today. Let's talk about some Egyptian social dances. So Shabi and Mahraganat, which Mahraganat, I don't know if I said that properly. They are very popular in the current Cairo scene, and many of the songs have made their way into our regular belly dance performance playlists. So this is something that you could potentially hear when you go see a show, basically a set. So if there's one dancer doing multiple songs, that would be considered a set. If they're just coming out and doing one or two songs, it's probably more of a Hafla situation, more of a showcase. I like to throw in a social dance song at the end of my set so that I can go around and specifically interact with audience members and get them up and dancing, because these are social dances. They're not really made to be super complicated. You're not expected to do a lot of balletic movement or technique. It's really more about moving and grooving. I don't know how old that made me just sound, but there it is. And then there's a lot of pan-Arab stylizations that we see. I'm not going to get too much into them, but things like Khaliji, which has the thobe that you are kind of showcasing. Dabki, so this is really big in the social dance scene. Very popular. I would say the number one that you see as an American, when I go to shows, I'll usually see a Lebanese style dubki. There are various other ones. There's also the Kaulia style, which is Iraqi, and there are obviously more. We're not going to go over a whole bunch of them, but those are some that are really popular right now, and also they're kind of shoehorned into belly dance performances, whether they're belly dance or not. It comes from kind of the same regions, and they just kind of put them in there for the stage, and it's really fun. I really love being in a dubki line. I'm obviously never going to lead one, not that great at them, but that 6 really gets you. So let's move on. Our final thing, we're going to talk about the word of the day. So today I wanted to talk about the word Tarab. So this is a word that describes the bliss that can be experienced while listening to music. Basically, it's getting lost in the music, and it can be like being in a trance. I think it's more of a sensory thing. You just get swept away. When I think about doing a taksim, which is an improvised, unmetered, there's no counts instrument, you kind of have to surrender to that instrument and just stop thinking and start feeling. And that's kind of what I try to tap into, whether I can or not that day, because ADHD brains are fun. But just kind of losing yourself in the music, that is Tarab. Just blissful abandonment. All right, well, that's all for today. If you have any questions, be sure to submit them through comments or email. You can go to my website, alyssajacob.com/contact, to send in your questions, and I will answer them as soon as I can. Thanks everyone for being here. I hope to see you next time. Cheers!